Andy Wilson, thank you so much for joining me.
We're recording. We're live.
We're live.
This is, everything I say, canon will be used against me in a court of law.
Yes, most likely by the Moscow City.
Perfect.
So I want to talk to you about how and when to fight as a Christian. And that's kind of a big topic. So we're going to dissect it and look at it under a microscope. But first off, I kind of lay the groundwork. What's the point of fighting?
Winning.
But that's not it. Because if you just win, well, how about this? Define winning.
Well, is there a question about what winning means?
Well, yes, because if you're, having I should define fighting first. If you're having a conflict with someone, a brother in Christ, you don't want to win by crushing them. You want to win that
what winning is would vary in every different situation. So if you're playing golf, you want fewer strokes. You want a low number. If you're playing football, you want a high number.
Right.
Winning looks different in different situations. So if you're trying to win back a brother, that looks different than if you're trying to defeat a tyrant.
Right. Exactly.
So and then there's also times when winning is simply not complying, not rolling over. So when a martyr is facing a tyrant, when a martyr goes to the stake and is burned, winning is not necessarily survival. Winning is winning, and it all depends on the situation, the circumstances.
Yeah.
What kind of game are you in? What kind of moment are you in?
Does that look different for guys and girls?
No.
But they fight different?
No. I'm trying to simplify this for you. Winning wouldn't look different. It's just like the same principle would apply.
Right. They both end up martyred at the stake.
A victory is a victory.
Right.
Tactics could look different, but even then, a lot of times they would overlap.
Right.
So it'd be similar.
But there's fighting like a guy, and guys have this tendency when they know they're kind of in the thick of the moment to okay, fine, I'll burn it all down. And then there's fighting like a girl. And or is there just fighting like a Christian?
Let's go with that. Let's say fighting like a Christian.
Yeah.
And then if you're going to try to gender tactics, the objective won't change male or female. You could gender tactics. Jael was seductive. Esther was seductive. But Jael was seductive differently. Jael was comforting and maternal, and here I'm going to give you some warm milk. Here's a drink.
Right.
Take a nap. I'm going to murder you in your sleep.
Yeah.
Esther seduced a king. That would be something that's kind of unique to her gender in that situation. Mordecai played with different tactics because he had different pieces on his chessboard. He wasn't as attractive as Esther was.
We hope not.
Yeah, I doubt Mordecai was as attractive as Esther was. So tactics can vary, but winning is winning is winning. So if the goal in fighting is always to win, but to keep your eyes on what is a real win versus what is not a win. Getting your way is not the same thing as winning.
That's probably what I was getting at. Yeah.
So the getting to be right, if you're just fighting over my dad, my grandfather, I don't know who said it first, but maybe it's from Narnia. I don't know, but there's a deeper right than being right. And just being right in an argument, you can still be wrong. You can
do it the wrong way.
Being a turkey in your argument.
Right.
And squander the whole moment. So there's, in every given situation, if you're reading the moment, you're reading the story in which you exist, what's at stake, who are the players, who are you, who are they, where's the win? In every one of those fights, you're going to try to win. You're going to try to find the win. And sometimes that win is martyrdom and failure. And sometimes it's just refusing to back down. You will not roll over and participate in a particular lie or
COVID.
Yeah.
Or
COVID.
transgender.
Yeah. Something like that. But it will vary, conflict to conflict to conflict. The stakes change. The wind changes.
Right.
Every single thing is gonna change ad hoc to a narrative moment in which you exist.
Now, does the approach change?
Always, because in every rhetorical situation, there's a triangle, and the triangle is who are you? Where are you? So who and where are you?
Right.
Who and where is your opposition? What relationship exists between the two of you? So is it hostile? Is it Cold War? Is it, what's the
Right.
dynamic? They're powerful, you're weak, you're powerful, they're weak. Like, who are you? Where are you? Who are they? Where are they? Where ought they to be? So that's the third point of the triangle. So they're here, you're here. You've unpacked the dynamics of character and situation. So I'm a young single male trying to talk about abortion. I am a middle-aged woman who's had 4 abortions before conversion. Those, who am I? Where am I? Those are 2 very different
Right.
pieces on the chessboard.
Yeah.
So who are you? Where are you? Where do you stand? Who are they? Where are they? Where ought they to be? That third point. So once you've established those things, now you have kind of like the anchor points of a battlefield, of a conflict.
Right.
So I'm here, they're here. This is where peace is. This is where winning is. So winning is when they are here, somehow, or they're just off the board. So Goliath, David and Goliath, I cut his head off.
Yeah.
Like, he's done.
Right.
Where ought he to be is dead. So when
Right.
he is dead, there's the win. Once you have those 3, then you move into classical rhetoric, basically. And the way Aristotle defines rhetoric is the ability to discover all the available means of persuasion. So basically, that's kind of like a flyover hand wave. But you're sitting here, they're sitting here, and then you troubleshoot it. What are the things you could do? What are the things available to you that would move them, would in fact move them?
Right.
Is it litigation? Is it bringing charges? Is it Matthew 18? Is it forgiveness? Is it kindness? Is it hospitality? What is it? So what are the things that could move them, or cutting their head off like David and Goliath? What are the things that could move them to that place? Now you're in the discovering invention is what I would call it, as opposed to rhetoric. Aristotle defines all of rhetoric as discovering the available means of persuasion. I think that's one part of it, just the canon of invention. Once you've discovered all the available means of persuasion, you then analyze them. Which ones will be most effective? Which are the best? Which are immoral? Which are things that ought not to be done?
Right.
So you could have that triangle set up and say, I'm going to hire my cousin Vinny to go over and break his kneecaps. That'll be convincing.
Right.
The whole discussion recently, I was having a long conversation with my son about the A-bomb and Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So we are here. The Japanese are here. We need them to give us an unconditional surrender.
Right.
So what are the available means of persuasion?
Nothing, because they wouldn't surrender.
Yeah, well, some people argue
We
that
figured
they
it
would have,
out.
right? That's the argument, right? Or we could do this. I think one of the important points is that after Hiroshima, they still didn't surrender.
Right.
So the argument that they would not have surrendered easily is a pretty compelling argument. So of the available means of persuasion, an A-bomb, 2 of them, like we could do that. Well, that's the question. It worked. It got them there. Was it moral? Was it immoral? And so it's not just pragmatic. You also have to is this morally acceptable? Is this allowable? How do we account for civilian death? There's all these conversations to be had about the A-bombs, right?
Right.
But when you're discovering the available means of persuasion, everything's on that list.
Yeah.
And then you start saying, nope, that dishonors God. This dishonors God. This displeases God. You start throwing things away. And there are times when you're in a fight, you're in a conflict, where you look at the only available means to win a particular kind, get in your way, win, unconditional surrender type win, are dishonoring to God. It's like, well, then you have to rethink what you're doing.
Right.
So maybe I'm supposed to lose. Like maybe I'm actually not supposed to win. How do I rejigger the board? How do I need to see the board differently? If God hasn't given me the available means of winning, what am I supposed to do? What is he calling me to do? How am I supposed to function? And you have a whole different conversation. But who are you? Where are you? Who are they? Where are they? Where ought they to be? Those are the anchor points of any conflict, and the kind of the starting point of processing what's available. Then if you are a 19-year-old female, if you're a grandmother, if you are an ex-Navy SEAL, if you're a former president, that changes every dynamic,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So girl, guy, old, young, former Hell's Angel, former youth pastor, disgraced minister, everybody's carrying with them the entirety of their narrative. And
Right.
it undercuts them and weakens them, or it strengthens them. It's what they can use or what they can't use. It works against them or for them.
Right.
And when they look at somebody else and they think they see where that somebody ought to be, then and they're in a conflict, they really have to work with the cards they're holding.
And you only do that because you actually like love the person and want them to get to where you are. Because you can just beat them over the head with, here's the truth, deal with it. And sometimes that's necessary. But you have to.
I mean, like, I think that sounds good, but I don't think it's probably true. So did David kill Goliath because he loved Goliath?
No, he loved the Israelites.
Right.
Right.
So the
But
dynamics,
those are different kinds of conflicts. That's a like take him
Goliath
off
was
the
here,
chessboard versus
David was here.
right.
Where ought Goliath to be? Dead.
Dead.
And so there's conflict like that.
Yeah.
And there's conflict that you're in because you love your opposition. There's conflict that you're in because you love something else, and the opposition is a threat to that.
Right.
But
which is like war versus conflict.
Yes, but I think there's conflict like that too. So if I got into conflict with somebody who's being some jackass in the community,
right?
So somebody moved here, let's say hypothetically, this has never happened before, but somebody moved to Moscow who was a jackass.
We don't have them.
Never happened. And they're just being asinine. Now, they don't bother me. I don't see them. I don't know them.
Right.
I'm not around them. It's not annoying me because I have no interaction with this person. But I could easily find myself in conflict with them because I love the community and I love the church. And this person is jeopardizing it by being a jackass. And so I could find myself in conflict, not out of love for that jackass. I could not care what happens to that jackass. I care about the community.
Right.
I'm not going to them out of a deep love for them. I can't hate them, but I do have a deep love for the church, for a church community. And if I'm going to somebody saying, I don't care if you're an idiot, like that doesn't really give me a rash at all. You can go be an idiot, but I don't want you being an idiot into a microphone. I don't want you being an idiot
here
on behalf of my people.
Okay.
I don't want you anointing yourself as some kind of spokesman, because our enemies will really, really quickly want the biggest idiot to be our spokesman. They will help select those idiots. Basically, that's not war, but I think there's plenty of times I could be motivated by love for something else. I could be motivated by love for NSA or by love for Logos or Canon, love for the church, not love for the individual I'm in conflict with. While I still ought to be loving, I still should love my neighbor. That's not the motivator. The motivator of that action is not love for them. It's love for something else.
Well, I think it's both to an extent, because you do love them. You want what is best for them because they are made in the image of God.
No, I need to be loving towards them, but it's not my motivator at all.
So what's the difference between those two? How does it look practically?
It means I have to behave like a Christian in my interactions with them. I have to actively be loving towards them while I'm doing this.
But the best thing for this person is to be out of this community.
Maybe. Or to be fundamentally different.
Right. But but looking at them in this community, they're not going to change.
But the best thing for them individually is a side quest. It's not why I'm in that conflict.
True.
I'm in the conflict for the sake of the church, the school, whatever.
Right.
In this hypothetical scenario, I'm not I'm not just saying I really love this person so deeply that I want them to be richer and more effective in the faith. And so I'm motivated out of a desire to see them thrive. Side quest. Sure. I'm not trying to see them not thrive.
Right.
But I don't care if they leave.
Right. You think
change.
That leaving would be better for them.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not war. So my motivator is not love for that person. My motivator, the reason why I'm in the conflict, the reason why I looked up their email address, the reason why I sought them out and talked to them is not love for them. The reason why I sought them out and talked to them is love for something else.
Yes, but that's just an order of loves. That's a higher and lesser love. You can still like if there's a CEO who knows that his employee is not performing, he can give him like here's a path to performing at the level you need to be, and he can give him, okay, you're no longer at the company. Both of those he does because he does what's best for the employee,
Nope.
but he also does what's best
Nope.
for the company. He does
Only
both.
no. Ty goes to the company. He's got a loyalty that he has
Ty
to.
goes to the company, but he
He can tell himself it's best for the employee. It might not be.
That's true,
and
but
it's irrelevant. It just shouldn't enter into his calculus at all.
but you're not. But that's not hating them, is it?
No, but it's absolutely not caring.
So how do you reconcile that with maybe this is
Let's say I started a school. So we're not using Logos as an example. Let's say I started a school 20 years ago. I've got this great elementary school, and I've got some teacher who's being terrible. And she's being terrible in my imaginary school.
right.
She's doing a bad job. It's bad for the kids. It's bad for the families. And then I go to remove her, but it's bad for her to be removed.
But I think long term it's good for her.
Tell yourself that if you want.
No, but it is because like
Tell yourself that if you want. Doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter to the outcome of what happens, but it does matter in how you approach it and how you act throughout the conversation.
How?
In that when you come in, you do it in lovingness, not in okay, you're being fired.
If I come in and
because you're
say
a
this is
bad
best
person.
for you, that's just me.
No, I'm not saying that.
Okay.
What I'm
are you
saying is like this is what's best for the school, and in the back of your head, you also know that what's best for you is to not be in this situation where you are performing poorly or doing the wrong thing. You know that the best situation for them is somewhere else because here they're in a situation where that you're not going to say that, but it is in the back of your
I've
head.
been involved in kicking students out when it would have been way better for the student to stay in.
Why?
Because they're in a wholesome community. They're surrounded by godly kids who are pursuing wisdom. They're in a better place if they stay in. And I kick them out because it's worse for everybody else.
Right. Yes. So how is that not
When a disciplinary
hating
hearing
them?
committee or a performance committee or whatever, when a disciplinary hearing committee is meeting with a student who did something bad, they have to think first and foremost, what is best for the school? They cannot think what's best for this kid, except as a side quest. And even if they're like, it'd be best for this kid if this kid got to stay, but it would be worse for all the other kids if this kid got to stay. They can have some kind of axiomatic principle like you seem to, where I am just asserting that it is in fact better for them to be gone. It might not be. They might have really ruined their life by doing this and getting chucked. It might not be best for them.
Yes.
And I don't care.
Right. So how is that not hating them?
Well,
Hating
what do you
is a
think?
strong word.
What do you think hate is?
Yeah, hating's a strong. I think it's too strong of a word. But in the sense that
I'll be honest with people. So I will look them in the eyes and I'll tell them the truth. I think that's loving. And when you are treating somebody as you would like to be treated, you're trying to treat them fairly and honestly, but you're not trying to lift all consequences off of them.
oh, absolutely.
Right. So
Right.
if I were in their shoes and I too had sold cocaine in an elementary school and plagiarized everything, how would I like to be treated?
Right.
I need to put myself in their shoes and I need to treat them the way I would like to be treated in their shoes. I do not need to factor in what is best for this person.
Well, they probably wouldn't like to be treated. You're kicked out of the school.
Of course they wouldn't.
They would probably like to be
They want grace. They want an extra chance. They want another.
right.
Of course they do.
Yeah. So what do you mean treat them as they would like to be treated then?
No, as I would like to be treated. So love your neighbor as you love yourself. So I want to treat this person the way I would like to be treated. Golden rule. If I were in their shoes, how would I like to be treated? How I would like to be treated is honestly, fairly, and of course, if I want like an abundance of grace and I would like the good of everyone else sacrificed on the altar to me, if that's how I would like to be treated, then I need to get over myself and I need to mature.
Right.
But if I, in biblical wisdom, understand how I would like to be treated, were I the offender, then that's how I need to pursue it. Though, like the operation, that's how I should do it. But if I've crossed that line and I'm bad for everyone else, I want people to tell me and I want to be removed.
Yeah.
But I say that from this position of not having yet fallen into that position.
Right.
From the outside, I could see that. But if I'm on the inside, if I really am that person never wants to get kicked out.
Yeah.
They don't want that. And I think that it is really an easy emotional placebo for yourself when you're firing somebody or when you're kicking somebody out to say it's best for them. It's best for all of us. People love to say, it's better for you that I do this. Not always. We don't need it to be.
Yeah.
But for some reason, Christians want it to be. They want it to be better for the person they're firing. They want it to be better for the person they're kicking out because they want to be gracious, understandably. But that's just not
always feasible.
It's not the world that God put us in.
That too.
So I could kick a kid out of school and he could go join the Marines and go get shot in Fallujah. I'm like, well, that wasn't better for him.
well, you don't know. Maybe
it wasn't better for it. No, just objectively wasn't better for him. Would have been better for him to still be alive in Bible studies.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But I kicked him out of the Bible study and he went and got shot.
Yeah.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, but that's a better situation for him in his
he got
shoes.
Shot.
No, I know. But in God's eyes, he has gone from selling cocaine to elementary kids to dying for country.
No, he was on a cocaine run when he got shot.
Oh, okay. In this imagination, with under the Marines' protection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
He was buying a bunch of illegal poppies. Anyway, the point is that when we fight, we have to fight for something, on behalf of something. We should fight out of love, and it should be love for God above all else, and then love for other things below that. But I have seen many, many, many Christians lie to themselves and to everybody as they fire people. And this will be best. This will be better. This will be better for you.
Yeah.
They say firing somebody. That's wildly insulting, patronizing, frequently false.
Right.
It doesn't matter. You don't need it to be better for them. It's better for the company that they're gone. It's better for the school that they're gone. It's better for, fill in the blank that they're gone.
Now, sometimes
that's all you need.
Yeah. Now, sometimes it ends up being better for them.
Sure.
That's
God
probably where I'm
remains gracious.
From. Right. Exactly.
So he can raise the dead and he can do kind things to people, and he does all the time. It's just not our job to declare in advance that that's what's happening here.
Yes. That's probably what I'm thinking of. Is there are a lot of times that I know of where it did, like, they were better off for having gotten a swift kick in the pants, gone through the prodigal son routine.
I had long time ago. I'll modify some of the details so nobody knows what I'm talking about. But I got asked advice about a project and told the truth. Was not nasty. It's like just told the truth. And then later on had people trying to blame me for an attempted suicide. Because I hadn't been more affirming. And the fact is, if somebody has a movie and they spent a lot on it and they put a lot into it and they're already so far into it, I will watch people lie and lie and lie and lie. They won't tell the truth to people. They just really, really hesitate to do it. People avoid trouble. They don't like conflict. And
Right.
so they create more trouble and more trouble and more trouble, because when you do directly say something to somebody and they're like, hey, what do you think of this movie? What do you think of this project? And I think it was misguided. I think you lost all the investors' money. And I think you should have an honest conversation with them about like damage control
Right.
at this point. And then somebody attempts suicide. Is it my fault that I told them what I honestly see, or is it their fault for having gotten themselves in this pickle? Telling somebody they're in a pickle,
Right.
is not the rude, awful thing. But people love to avoid conflict. They avoid it at all costs. And so as a result, they end up with much bigger problems. So if conflict is the plunging of a toilet, and it is, like clogged toilet, here are you.
It's
It
dirty
needs to be
work.
flushing. What are my available means? I got this plunger. I got to go do this job. Like
Right.
I gotta go deal with this. When you show up, you'll find out that 100 people have walked by. You'll find out a bunch of people still use that toilet knowing it was clogged. You'll find out that
Right.
so many people just wouldn't deal with the problem.
Yeah.
And you want to be the kind of person who instinctively deals with problems. Like, I will pick up the plunger, I'll do the work, I'll do the thing. But people hate it. And I've seen big projects stagnate. I've seen families spiral. I've seen all sorts of things happen when no one was
courageous
plunge the
enough.
toilet. Nobody will just put on the rubber gloves and grab the plunger and go get it done.
Right.
And then there are guys who do. My grandfather was one that I would have thought was never hesitant to plunge a toilet. Right. He was just very direct, very, very blunt, honest, loving, but never hesitant to be in conflict.
Right.
Near the end of his life, I asked him what his biggest regret was in life. And I had all sorts of things scrolling in my head that I thought he might say, none of which he said. And they're the more pious, evangelistic, like he was an evangelist. I had all these things that I thought he might say. And what he said was, he knew the answer quickly. He didn't have to really think about it. He's like, man, I really wish that I had fired more people faster.
Yep.
And I was like, whoa, okay. And he said, because I would let things stagnate, and I would hope that they would self-correct. I would hope that, the toilet would start flushing again by itself.
Right.
It's like, basically, he said there were guys where if they gave me one good month, I would let them have 3 bad months before I'd fire them. If they gave me one good year, I'd let them have 3 bad years before I'd fire them. And he said, I could have been so much more productive. The ministries he was running could have been so much more productive, so much more impactful if he'd fired people fast. And it wasn't about those people, even though I think he believed it would be better for those people to be out of a job that's wrong for them quickly, or to meet consequences of your actions.
Right.
God made the world in such a way that meeting the consequences of your actions is a healthy thing.
Right.
Not necessarily best, but it is in some ways.
Yeah.
At some times.
Like spanking your kid.
Yes. Sometimes. But it's, in other words, that was his biggest regret, was just not addressing issues with conflict rapidly.
Right.
And that surprised me. It really did, because he's one of the guys that I never would have thought that was a problem for.
Yeah.
But that was a deathbed regret, looking back on a lifetime where he considered a huge amount of fruitfulness to have been missed, and he failed to achieve because he failed to fire. He failed to have conflict rapidly.
Yeah.
So anyway, that surprised me.
Yeah. Now that's a CEO to subordinates. When if a subordinate has a problem with CEO, how do you take that up? Or someone who is below has a problem with someone who is above. How do you take that up in a way that you do end up winning?
Sometimes you don't, and the win is that you still have a job. But again, same. If you go back through the triangle and you say CEO, employee, they need to be wildly more productive But it's like, do they need to, or does the person in that job need to? So sometimes I'm going to fire them and put somebody else there.
Right.
But what you're saying is employee to CEO. Uh, Often the answer is nothing. You should do nothing. Other times it is, okay, you need to say something for whatever reason because they're still a Christian brother or whatever. But when employees want to go to authority figures because the authority figure needs to be somewhere else, I've seen that go wrong often because I've seen that employee completely misunderstand their own place. They misunderstand who they are.
Mm-hmm.
They misunderstand everything about it. So when that employee is going to CEO, when that employee is going to ownership, it's like,
Right.
they often think like an owner. They think they're the true ownership. They think they're the true shareholder because they run Saturday shifts and they love those Saturday shifts and the owner is ruining it. And so they want to go advocate for some small thing to ownership. They don't understand the owners, they're a hireling and the owner has a much different relationship to the whole thing than they do. So they often, employees just misread completely who they are in the story.
Right.
When they want to go up the chain of authority, they misread who that person is, they misread who they are, and they just struggle to see the whole picture. So sometimes they see it honestly and they need to be able to like know where they need the boss to get to, and then look at the available means of persuasion and how could they possibly help them see it. And if there's no way that they could help them see it, then why are you trying to help them see it? Like, what's the point? So what are the stakes? If this person doesn't move to where they ought to be, what happens? What are the
Right.
consequences? Why does this matter so much? Like, what are the stakes? And is it worth you jeopardizing your job? Like, creating conflict for what exactly? So employees doing it, I've not seen many do it right. I'm sure some have, but I've seen plenty do it wrong.
Yeah. But you do it because you want you are for the company's best interests.
Ideally.
Right.
But what's the company? What is the company in this hypothetical?
I'm not going to name names, but you have. Well, explain the question.
I mean, make one up. Like, what is it? So if you have an employee and they're going to the person who owns the company.
Yeah, let's say Bob from Bob's Ice Cream thinks that the direction his company needs to go is they're going to start selling ice cream out of the back of a truck only in winters. And his employee says, look, I don't think this is going to be best for the company because people don't want as much ice cream in winter as they want in summer.
Yeah.
And then he goes to Bob and he says, Bob, I think the best way to have this company succeed is if we don't sell it in winter, we sell it in summer. But that keeps them in their place. They're not making orders, but they are giving advice.
So the fact is, if you have an employee of Bob and that employee is saying, I think this is a mistake, that's all they need to do. Say, hey, FYI, I want to put this on your radar. I think this is a mistake. I don't think this is great. But they're not playing with any of their own money.
Right.
The employee has no skin in the game.
Other than his job.
Bob does, right?
Right?
So Bob is incentivized to have his company succeed. If you see something that you think Bob's missing, that's not a fraught conversation. Like,
right.
That shouldn't be a big conflict. It's just like, hey, boss, like, just want to put this on your radar. It's your company. Do what you want to do. But I want to put this on your radar. I don't think we should do this. I think this will be bad for the company. We should only sell in August. We should skip February. I mean, there's no conflict there. You just let them know.
Right.
This is what I see. Whatever you want's great. It's your company.
Yeah.
That's not it's not a big deal. It's not a big conflict. What ends up happening is when the person who has run the truck for so long starts to emotionally feel that they're an owner.
Right.
And they've been the hireling and they feel like an owner even though they're not. And then they get mad at Bob for changing the logo or whatever. That kind of conflict is frequent.
Right.
And that's what I meant by saying employees lose track of who they are and they misread their own place in the story. They start to believe themselves to be a powerful shareholder when they are getting paid $12 an hour, down at the bottom of the food chain.
Right.
So I think that that's frequent.
Yeah.
Also, I've had conversations with guys where they want jobs and they tell me what they think they're worth. And so some guy, pops into my office and it's like, I'd like a job. I think I'm worth 60 grand a year. And it's like, okay, unpack that.
Right.
Like, you're worth 60 on the free market. Somebody else is offering you 60. Or you're going to make my company 60. Are you going to make my company 120?
More than 60?
Are
Right.
you going to make my company 180? Like, when you set your worth, I am worth something. What is that based on? And every conversation I've ever had like that, the employee had not thought about it. They had thought about what they want.
Right.
What would make me happy? They hadn't thought about
What they could give.
what they would make the company.
Right.
They just don't. And realizing overhead, infrastructure, everything else for a company, you need to make a lot more than your salary back to be worth it.
Mm-hmm.
You need to really increase business significantly beyond your salary in order to offset your salary, your space, everything else. So camera operators, contractors, it just doesn't matter if I'm hiring a plumber or a camera operator or what. If I'm running a plumbing company, how much business are you going to get done for me?
Right.
How much billing are you going to generate versus how much am I going to pay you? It's
got to be a return on investment.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so most conflict I've seen from lower level going up is about money. And it's usually about the people at the bottom wanting more of it.
Yep.
That's where that comes. And they usually are blind to circumstances.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't know that you've dealt exactly with that, but you have dealt with having problems with people who were in higher positions than you. You've been in Hollywood. That is not exactly the most righteous place.
Yeah.
And so you have like fundamental problems with these people. How did you navigate that?
It's not been hard. It's really like, remember who you are and remember who they are and who's in charge. So if somebody wants to do a thing with something that's their thing, I'm not going to go follow my sword about it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
If somebody's trying to do something to my thing, then I read the contracts and I read the contracts closely, and it's all risk reward of like, am I right? Is my read of the contracts correct? And then how much money would it take? How much time would it take for me to successfully get the outcome desired? And would that be worth it? And the answer is usually not.
Right.
So it's not, normally I've only had a few opportunities really think that way, but it's not been worth action in any of them. In the city of Moscow with Stickergate, we spent in legal fights all the way up to SCOTUS, and SCOTUS, they just refused to hear the kid's case, 2 free speech cases. One was Stickergate, which went all the way up, and the other was a kid who wore a t-shirt that says there's only 2 genders and got kicked out of school. And they refused to hear that case too. So his being chalked stands. He got kicked out of school. That did not get overturned, and they didn't lose.
Yep.
And then city of Moscow's sticker tyranny, their nonsense, also didn't get heard by SCOTUS.
Right.
And it's not that it was decided against us. They just didn't hear it. And Trump's keeping them busy right now. So I get it. At the same time, I don't regret the fight.
Right.
So because the most important thing to do with tyrants is fight them.
Even if you don't win.
Yeah, just fight. It's always a fight.
Right.
And it's when there's no fight, there's no resistance, that it really gets bad. And so I'll fight him again next time, and I'll fight him again next time. Like, I'm going to do this as long as I'm able to do it. I will keep fighting. So I'm happy to just say, okay, God, like, this is all in his hands.
Right.
I think we were supposed to fight. We fought up to SCOTUS, and I was proud of the case they represented. They presented to SCOTUS, and I was disgusted with the state of Idaho and our attorney general for doing what they did in taking the side of COVID tyranny. to try to help the city of Moscow by fighting against us at SCOTUS. So our alleged conservative AG and so on took the burden off the city of Moscow and put it on to the Idaho taxpayers in fighting us at SCOTUS. So our attorney was the former Solicitor General of Texas. Our opponent was the current Attorney General of Idaho. It's unfortunate.
We should be on the same side here.
Yep.
So how do you know when to fight? Because you're not fighting everything. You are fighting Stickergate. That's a big one, right? And you fight the one, like we fought COVID, but you're not fighting when the government decreases the speed limit from 30 to 25 in an area. You're not going to fight that. Depends on how
I'm not
late
fighting
you are.
income tax.
Right. Like there's some things you don't fight.
Yeah,
you just kind of accept.
because it's pretty simple. I mean, you're looking at the consequences. What am I fighting for? What are the consequences? Would I be right constitutionally if I fought on income tax? Yes.
Yeah.
Would I win? No.
No.
What are the consequences? 20 years in prison.
Right.
Like, okay, is that worth it?
Right.
I'm going to fight over how much money. Money can't have that kind of dominance over me. I can't care about it that much.
Right.
That I'm willing to take time away from my family and community and like put myself in a cell.
Right.
And go fail as a father and a husband because I'm fighting over money.
Now, at the same time, with something like Stickergate, you've spent a tremendous amount of time, money, energy on it, and it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, it's not going to. You're not going to. We're
still in the fight because there's 3 of us. But Rory's criminal appeal, just like this kid with the 2 genders T-shirt, May 15th, the SCOTUS had a conference and then did not take the case up. And so they didn't decide against us. They just didn't take the case. And so it's like we're at the end of the line.
Right.
As far as Rory's criminal appeal goes, we're still not at the end of the line as far as litigation and other things.
The rest of it, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not something where, like, the risk to reward ratio there, it's a sense of madness that you would go fight, like, the tremendous amount of time, energy, etc., to get what exactly?
I want this town specifically, this liberal town, to think before they fire. I want them to hesitate. I want them to know that we are not going to just roll over and be bullied all the time. So if I fight for my lunch money, like if they're trying to take my lunch money and I fight for my lunch money, I fight for the right to criticize their tyranny. They're not going to try to steal my lunch money as much. So even if I end up with 2 black eyes and they have a broken nose and 1 black eye, and maybe I got the worst of it,
right?
Like I'm going to fight because they have to be deterred. I want to live here. So this isn't the IRS. This isn't the federal government. This is my town. And if this town reserves the right to criminally prosecute anybody who criticizes them or makes fun of them, like, and we roll over, like that's just a horrible place to live.
Yeah.
So I'm fighting for our own freedom here. But that brawl is one where I might take the bigger beating at different phases, and I won't hesitate to do it again.
But the point is, you stood up.
Yeah. So they lost on the Psalm Sings. My son played chicken with a cop on a sidewalk during COVID first. When he was standing next to his cousin, they were chatting. A cop came and said that they were staying too close together, and she was going to arrest them if they didn't separate. And my son basically explained his constitutional position and said, we'll still be here. And she said, I'm going to drive around the block. If you're still standing this close together, I'm going to arrest you or cite you or whatever she said. But I think it was arrest. And he's like, I'll be right here.
Yeah.
And then she
did. If anything, I'll be standing closer.
Yeah. And she did not come back around. Okay, there we go. Flinch.
Yep.
But then after the Psalm Sing arrests, when protesting the Psalm Sing arrests, Rory ends up in cuffs on the sidewalk and illegal arrest, everything else that went on. Ultimately, I think a lot of the reason why the case got handled the way it got handled was to protect the Moscow murders prosecution, because the cops who did a terrible job in our case and were really, really sloppy in our case were also involved over there. And it turns out did a really bad job over there too. And, so I've had a lot of journalists come, a number of journalists who've been interested, and one very aggressively so, about the inner workings of our case and which officers perjured themselves, which officers lied when.
Right.
And that's a big deal. They also presented video evidence in the Moscow murders case without audio, the same thing they did with us. There's all this stuff that was like, oh, it turns out it's the same people. It's just ours was this petty little tyranny nonsense. And then this is an incident of real darkness that they had to deal with.
Right.
So when we were fighting on Stickergate, that was a big part of the resistance, was the murder prosecution had to be protected. The original judge had to be protected. The cops had to be protected. And state of Idaho judges really kind of circled the wagons a little bit to try to protect that case. And even so, it's still like in jeopardy down in Boise. It still comes up like, oh, somebody leaked Dateline. Somebody was being sloppy. But honestly, the judge even tried to gag me on which of the officers had a pre-existing Brady violation. And like, we can't have this getting out. And this, because it was such a bad time.
Right.
And it was a bad time to be fighting them about stickers when they had this other really big gnarly thing going. But there was a big victory on the Psalm Sings, and Rory's protest was a protest of the Psalm Sing arrests. Those,
Right.
they got slapped on that. We fought on that.
Right.
The Department of Justice is popping the city of Troy right now for something similar. And that's actually not the city of Troy really at all. That's Moscow, like Moscow liberalism creeping out there.
Enforcing it because we care.
Yeah, exactly. So as far as when and how to fight, whenever it seems worth it and whenever you're able. So
Are the ground rules different for Christians and non-Christians? What does that look like?
Yeah, don't sue a Christian. Don't go to court with a Christian, but
right. But other than that, I mean, we're not playing dirty.
What would be dirty?
Yeah, I should have defined that. We are not going to do something that disobeys. How much time do you have left? Out of curiosity.
8 minutes.
Okay. We're not going to do something that disobeys God's orders.
Sure.
Something that they might do, even if it's going to win us this case, similar to the A-bomb in Japan.
Yeah.
So how do you fight like a Christian?
Well, I mean, you have to be a good Christian. That's where you start. Care what God's law is, care what he thinks, try to be more and more like him. And there's not like a list of rules. So there's not a list of rules or how to fight like a Christian. It's like, this is off limits. This isn't. Like, well, lying, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, don't break the commandments. Like, it's pretty easy. It's pretty simple. But probably the most important thing is don't make it about you. Don't do it out of pure self-interest. I would also tell Christians everywhere, especially Christians in the abortion fight, never, ever, ever, ever play chess emotional.
Because then you're playing their game.
Well, you're losing. That's what I care about. So if you're trying to be a general, if you're trying to be strategic, if you're trying to run a chessboard and you are emotionally reacting to action on the board and you're making your tactical decisions based on your emotion, you're going to lose.
Right.
So that's the biggest thing is like, just don't do it. Don't don't knee jerk and say, this is the tactical way to go because I am mad. This is the tactical way to go because I'm emotional. It's like, no, you have to get yourself into a relatively emotionally neutral place to make strategic decisions. So
that's almost just fighting like a guy.
No.
Fighting,
I don't think
fighting in a masculine way.
Nope.
Okay.
Dudes get mad.
True, but the good ones don't.
I think you fight emotionally. You're not emotionally neutral. You're not a sociopath.
Everyone, well, not everyone. Almost everyone is not emotional, but you can't be emotional about the issue itself.
You cannot be emotional about tactical decisions.
Right.
You don't say, I think we ought to do this because I'm angry. Because I'll feel better when it's not about that. You're not trying to like vent your spleen. You're trying to win. And so if you lose a pawn, you lose a knight, you can't emotionally react.
Yeah.
Like you have to remain tactically neutral as you move your chess pieces.
But at the same time, Jesus flipped over the tables.
Yeah, but he made a even there, this is very simple. He didn't vent his spleen. He flipped over the tables because the tables needed to be flipped over. There was no loss of self-control.
Right.
So he looked at the chessboard and there were things that needed to be thrown.
He said we need to check some
Yeah,
tables.
this has to happen. And he went and did it.
Yeah.
He didn't lose the grip, a grip on his emotions and then just go.
Yeah.
And go do it. He is not somebody who's acting without self-control. And that's the most important thing there. So
Right.
You can be passionate and you can have emotion, but the question with your emotions is, do you feel the way you ought to feel? Do you feel biblically? Like, is how you feel according to biblical wisdom?
Is how you feel how God would feel.
How you ought to feel. Yeah, how
Right,
God
yeah.
would want you to feel right now. And then are you acting out of that emotion? Or are you acting out of wisdom? And so when you're looking at a chessboard, if you are acting out of emotion, you're just going to lose. And you're going to lose a lot.
Right.
So
most of the time people aren't, most of your life isn't spent fighting the big, fun stickergate things. How do you practice for that so that when that moment arrives, you are faithful?
I don't know. Self-control. So self-control in conflict is really important. So, that's, I think, critical. So do you really just have a grip on yourself and on your emotions? When you do go have conflict with somebody, when you don't go take concerns to somebody, when you appeal something up the chain at your work or at your school, are you doing it out of your feels? Are you doing it out of pure self-interest? Are you aggrieved?
Right.
Or are you doing it because it is to the good? It is better for everybody that you're doing this.
Right.
Are you a white blood cell? Are you fighting infection? Are you actually helping everyone? Or are you, in fact, the canker sore
Right.
that's just always fussing and causing conflict? And
boy cries wolf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy who is wolf. Are you, in fact, the infection?
Yeah.
So are you the white blood cell or are you the infection? And I think there's plenty of people who are the squeaky wheel who think they're making things better and they just aren't. They're being obnoxious. They're
Right.
whining about things that don't matter. They're just creating, general discontent and causing problems.
Yeah.
And then there's people who say like, oh, that's bad. I'm going to go send that email. I'm going to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I'm willing to go sit in this hot tub of conflict.
Knowing when to go poke and fight the bear.
Yeah. And can you do it dispassionately without your own ego involved?
Yeah.
So whenever your own ego is involved, you really shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
Like just don't.
It's like the same thing for disciplining a kid. Don't do it if you're mad at the kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where can
don't
people
get angry?
Where can people find you online? When can they what can they expect from you here in the near future?
I don't know.
You got Ashtown books.
Yeah, I'm working on Ashtown. Right?
Last one comes out soon.
Most recently, they can check out House of David on Amazon. Then Twitter, Andy Wilson Mutters. That might be my Instagram as well. Mostly, I'm not terribly interested online. You
have a podcast.
I do. Thanks.
There you go.
Stories Are Soul Food. Check out Stories Are Soul Food.
I'll put links in the description.
Yeah, it'd be great.
There you go. Thanks so much for coming on. It's been a pleasure. See you guys.